Floyd.
Here.
Director Decker.
Here.
Director Harvey.
Aye.
Director Loman.
Oh, I see my picture, so I guess I'm here.
Director Slater Carter.
Present. And moving on to President's statement, there is none tonight. Oral comments other than those on the agenda. I see one member of the public with a blue hand, so that would be Greg Diegas.
Okay, folks, I wanted to bring a couple of things to your attention because it looked like you had too short a meeting tonight. The first, let's take the first one. I sent you all an email updating my analysis of the asset burden that Montara Water and Sanitary District has. You may remember I presented this before, and there was some disagreement. I'll stand by the numbers. I got Kishan to give me a spreadsheet of all the assets at SAM, and I used civil engineering construction cost inflations from a government site to bring them current. There's still some refinements that can be made to update the data for projects done in recent years and the reshuffling that's going to occur. But it's not going to change the bottom number. And what you see is $135,000 per connection, approximately, asset burden. And so what I'm asking for is the board study that and update the financial model I prepared a couple of months ago so that we can see what the cash flows for asset replenishment look like over a 20-year planning horizon, because I think you're going to be facing another rate increase right away. And as a side note, I've now spoken to over half a dozen public works general managers and experienced board members in other districts. And the issues I'm raising are endemic to the industry and not unique to Montara. They're all grappling with this. So I'm asking for the finance committee to study the information that I've provided and have a little discussion, interactive discussion. The second issue is consolidation. You may remember the last rate increase, people were very upset and there was a lot of talk about consolidation. I understand some people prefer to not talk about this and just let it fade away and die away. I'm not convinced that's the right approach. I'm happy to study the issue. I've already done some research onto the potential economies of scale and consolidation. I've done some research into the benchmarks that LAFCO does not have about the benefits of consolidation. And I think an open task force studying this issue as part of the strategic planning. Are we going to have a strategic planning meeting this year? With community members who are interested, get everybody to bring their biases and information out, write down a paper, which I'll be glad to help author, analyze the pros and cons, and either put this matter to bed or action it based on the findings. So that's the action item. I hope you will authorize a task force leading into the strategic planning meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that sounds like a good idea. Offhand.
Agree.
Well, I agree, but we have to pay attention to this COVID thing, and COVID is getting, San Mateo County is day one on the state hot list. 2 more days and all businesses have to close down again.
I drove down Highway 1 past the beach, and I would say 95% of the people, assuming they're from over the hill, nobody had a mask on.
Right. Well, at the beach, I don't know that it's so critical, but they're using, they seem to be using funny numbers, but that's a whole nother discussion. It doesn't matter what I think or what you see, Rick. It matters what the governor stamps.
Yep.
So that's where we're at.
People out of here. Why are they bringing the virus over to us?
Well, that's a good question. Maybe we should put a toll on the road.
I think a barricade.
Something like that.
Moving on.
Moving on to public hearing. There is none. Consent agenda, there is none. Old business, there is none. New business, there is none. We are down at reports and it is 7:36. We are making record time here. Reports, Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side meetings. We had a finance committee meeting this morning, and I sent to Peter and Clemens the proposed contents for the updated SAM financial policies and procedures document. Maze is working on it, and since they're going through all the state regulations and such, it seems to me that it might be good for Montara to piggyback on this. I think the first step when we're talking about finance is knowing exactly what our policies and procedures are in a single document that is accessible to the public. The other problem that SAM is having, and it like all other agencies, it's how the GASB and retirement reporting is done. It appears that the accountant for the audit for SAM is lumping it all into a single number on an annual basis, for an annual basis. And it's not that the money is due now or that we have bills to pay based on that. We have a few retirees, not many. It will be growing as more and more of the staff retires. But trying to figure out how to handle that so it doesn't reflect as negatively on the SAM financials as it could. And according to Peter from Maze, this is a problem for all the agencies who have GASB, and I've asked him to look and see if there's a letter from GASB, the accounting board, to see if there's a way to soften the impact of it for people who don't quite understand what they're reading. So we will be getting the draft of the audit sometime in July, which would be in the next 2 weeks, and we're going to have a meeting to go over it. Other than that, that's Sam from my point of view.
Catherine,
Rick.
one of the articles, what was the project which SRT wrote up a report and they asked her to rewrite it a little bit, which they did. And Dr. Penrose freaked out and leaped on with both feet. What was the project that they were discussing?
It was, I believe it was the Princeton Force Main project. It was the study on it. And it was written from an engineering point of view, not a legal point of view, not a defensive point of view, because SRT is in fact an engineering company. Half Moon Bay, on the other hand, Director Penrose, Councilwoman Penrose, tried to say that the engineering perspective is incompetent. Jeremy Jungreis, the new attorney, said, no, it's a perfectly competent engineering firm, but that it needed to be restated from a position of potential litigation from ERF. And
They did.
which was what happened, and he said it was a pleasure working with SRT.
As soon as Penrose started talking and attacking, I jumped in and slammed them and told them to stop right now. And then that ended the conversation kind of, but I envision next meeting is going to be hell on wheels.
Next meeting is going to be hell on wheels, and I suggest anybody with any interest in this, take the time to watch it.
Anybody with
Because this
interest
is-
in the coast side as a whole, this
That's
is going
true.
to be an interesting meeting when Half Moon Bay shuts down the world.
Half Moon Bay has its particular agenda, and I go back and forth on what their agenda is, but Greg did touch on it on consolidation. I believe they figure they can spread their rate base and cover some substantial costs that their sewer system has, and they can spread the rates to Montara. One of them that was mentioned, and it was somewhat in passing until the board questioned them on it, was that, and this was on Dan Child's report, that there is some, and I've forgotten the exact point of infrastructure that is missing on the coast that needs to be put in, but not on the south coast. And I asked why, and he said, well, because Sam has to put it in on the north coast, and Half Moon Bay has to put it in their system, but that's not a Sam issue. It wasn't the holding tanks. I've forgotten what it was. It was not a pressure relief valve. It was something, I believe, to slow the flow down when needed. And they said they need it particularly in the south side. Oh, no, it was odor control.
Yes.
It was odor control. And they said they need it in Ocean Colony, but it's not a SAM issue. It is a Montara issue. And so his discussion
hang on. Ocean Colony and Montara, not the same thing.
Thank you.
Bay issue.
The odor control they want to put in a new odor control chemical that is not on a hazardous chemical list by the federal government, and essentially change the odor control to on the SAM pipes so that there's less corrosion. You can watch Dan Child's report on it.
So,
I think it's interesting, but some might use it to go to sleep with.
So the odor control would be a SAM project or a Half Moon Bay?
I see you, Greg.
The Half Moon Bay.
I just want to know
the north part.
What's Sam meeting?
Monday.
The one on Monday.
This past Monday.
13th.
Okay.
Sam has odor control equipment and procedures north of the plant. So that needs to be changed.
That's in El
The
Granada.
one
also on site at the plant. So which one are we talking about?
We're talking about on site at the plant and El Granada, because they're going to be changing the chemical from chlorine to a less toxic chemical.
Has the SAM board actually voted on that?
No, we only got the study on it.
So this sounds like expense that would need to be authorized by the SAM board.
And first we need a cost. And that was not included.
I'd be a lot more interested in the justification first before you started talking about cost.
The justification, it was a well done report by Dan. I recommend that everyone here who's interested listen to it. It took 15 minutes or so. It was a brief thing.
30.
And like I say, if you're interested in this stuff, it's interesting. If you're not, it'll put you to sleep.
So let me ask then. It sounds like he made a presentation and you found it compelling that there is corrosion that can be attributed to the odor control. Is that what you're saying?
To the chlorine, yes.
So we use chlorine in a lot of things. So I'd be interested to get the read from our team at Montara.
Well, I think it would, and I think we should get perhaps a quick discussion by Pippin.
If I could just ask a question now, I don't have any information to comment. Was the chemical?
Oh, hi, Pippin. I didn't know you were here.
I'm here. Was the chemical he was referring to bioxide?
Not by that name.
Because there are a couple proprietary chemicals which are slightly easier to handle, but if you have proper chemical handling procedures and training, you really should have a member agency peer review to see what the benefits are, what they're trying to solve, and what the costs are. Because if they're proprietary, the cost could be astronomical.
Yeah, no, this was not a proprietary chemical. It wasn't magnesium.
I think we should
something or other.
clarify. I think we should clarify that because odor control has, as an industry, has a tendency to pigeonhole and corner districts into products or methodologies which
Good.
are controlled and extremely expensive once you get hooked into a certain system.
Right.
So
I think
it could be the difference of a $2,000 versus a $20,000 a year type change. I'm throwing those numbers out. I don't have any information.
I understand.
for it, but we ought to look at it real closely. It could be good, but it also could be expensive.
Well, Clemens, why don't you get a hold of Keishan and ask for the PowerPoint that Dan Child did, and we can pass it on to all the board members, interested public, and Pippin and other engineers who may have an interest.
If it's planned expenditures, can't we follow Scott's recommendation and request that the members get a chance for a peer review?
I think that's a good idea.
I think this was just a chemistry lesson presentation is all it was.
Yep.
It was about 25, 30 slides of chemistry talking about oxidation, no oxygen, how to get oxygen in the pipes, and lots of options. It wasn't a proposal to go buy this chemical. It was more, here are some alternatives, here are some nitrates, here's what happens when you use sulfates.
That's all well and good, but professionals should look at it first to establish whether or not there's an actual demonstration of need. It's easy to go make a case if you're presenting to people who aren't chemists. I studied enough chemistry to know, because I thought I was going to be a chemist, that I would not start with the presumption that the conclusion is correct. I'd like to have professionals walk through it from start to finish.
I don't think there was technically even a conclusion. It was just, here's all the chemistry that's involved with biodegradation. And
right, but why are we talking about it if there's not a proposal coming?
I don't know why we spent a half an hour on that presentation.
Right. So this is typically a prelude to trying to make a case for spending money to do something different, and that's fine.
Scott is correct. It's been on the proposal list, and Barbara Dye asked for a more detailed explanation of what's going on.
I got a question that goes a little bit in a different direction. I am surprised that Sam is looking at this, and what this tells me is that there is a corrosion problem, and I'm wondering if Sam adds a chemical into the pipe that is corroding the pipe, who is ultimately, I mean, this shortens the lifetime of the pipe, and there's cost associated with this.
Well, Clemens, that's what I'm looking at is there's an assertion that there's a corrosion problem, but until you and Pippin have a chance to review it, I'm not willing to accept that assertion at face value. I want to see something to back it up, and I want professionals to evaluate it.
Well, and the question is, there is a corrosion problem. One of the things that has been corroded very heavily has been the steel pipe that had holes in the bottom of it from corrosion, but that's been replaced. Well, and we no longer have that steel pipe. But there is other equipment on this that was used, and maybe we need to have a total survey of the corrosion equipment that they feel or can justify is caused by the chlorine that is being used for odor control right now.
And this is what I'm getting at. It's like, make the case that there's corrosion, then make it an additional case that they've identified the cause of the corrosion, and then we can talk about what the alternatives might be. But if they're going straight to, we want to go solve this problem this way, then they should be prepared to have our professionals take a look at it. Because
I'm sure
jumping way ahead, and the right process is analysis, make the case, make the presentation, put it in front of other people, and then if you've got agreement, then we can start talking about options.
Right. This was just a broad, brief overview. I think it's worth looking at and talking to Keishan more about it. I know one of the problems is in Montara, there is a tank that holds the chlorine. According to federal operations codes, it's supposed to be a double wall tank. Apparently, the inner wall, fortunately, has holes, not the outer wall, has holes in it, and it will need to be replaced.
So this is the sodium hypochlorite tank down by the
Yes.
by the large tank.
Yep.
So
this is what started the discussion, and they're looking for less corrosive, less toxic things that will accommodate the odor control. I talked to Tim Costello during the break, actually, while we were all on camera and some people were gone, and I asked him what he thought of this particular project. And he said he had been recommending it 12 years ago when the system was changed to sodium chloride, to the chlorine. And for some reason, Jack Foley was the new manager then, and Jack Foley chose to go with the chlorine. So there's more history.
To be determined in the future.
Just follow the bouncing ball.
So Clemens, if we have a compromised sodium hypochlorite tank on the Montara property, did they notify you this?
I have no knowledge about any issues with the chlorine tank on the Montara property.
This seems like a procedural problem.
And Clemens just set out Dan's presentation to everyone. Thank you, Clemens. Moving right along to Midcoast Community Council, I got, and anybody can get an agenda from Len Erickson. There is going to be a major, I think, online discussion about Connect the Coast and the transit operations. I didn't write down the date, but it is on the MCC website. I suggest everyone say something because this is going to be our way of commuting on our little one-lane road for the foreseeable future. Once this money's spent, the county is going to say, well, it's done. I suggest everybody pay attention to that and get your opinion in.
Catherine,
CSDA report.
Did they say the style of the meeting?
I have forgotten. Go to the MCC website. I remember this is critical.
What they've done in the past is break people out into sub-meetings so nobody can hear they complimented us on our meetings that had so many people in it and our big rate increase meeting. But the Midcoast Council and the county have not been using that technique. They've been splitting people up so nobody can hear all the questions and get all the comments in. And that was one of the major arguments is they're kind of dividing up the community and you can't hear all the responses.
Greg?
So I've been involved in this, and in fact, I complimented you all on your meeting, the 5-hour meeting on the rate increase, and that's been echoed. This meeting is going to be a free-for-all, like the one we had, a messy, contentious, but participatory democracy example.
Yes.
In contrast to what you're talking about. We also are writing Joe Leclerc, if it'll do any good, and the Board of Supervisors with a bunch of protests about the way those meetings were designed to suppress citizen voices. So this is the MCC running its own meeting so that there is no suppression. And if you want the exact date, I could give it to you in a minute.
Okay. While you're looking for that, Rick can give us the CSDA report.
Still none. I'm going to push the folks I've tried twice to have them do a Zoom meeting. They're going to be electing new representatives to LAFCO in probably a couple months. I would almost demand that we have a Zoom meeting so we can all talk together. So I'll keep pressing that, but we still haven't had any meetings this year. So.
Okay, and if you could, somewhere, if you can get from Marcia the names of the reps and the districts, I think we should lobby for you to be elected to LAFCO.
I either have that or she has it online. I get it every year,
Right.
every time we do it.
Right. Greg?
But it's going to be an online voting this year by mail. So everybody is just going to submit their vote. There will be no discussions, no presentations, no nothing, just everybody vote.
Okay. Greg, the date of the MCC?
It's July 22nd, a Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Oh, my husband's birthday.
That's all right, Catherine. There's enough of us going.
Okay.
You can bring a cake.
I'll just send a note in prior. Attorney's report.
Oh, no report. Thank you.
I think you skipped LAFCO real quick.
Oh, I did, yes.
Just real quick on LAFCO, the only issue was the new MSR for our local RCD group, which is actually the county RCD group. I've got the full presentation, which is draft. It'll be coming out to us, but I can probably just forward it out to everybody. There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of controversial issues in there, but we have to have responses back by like mid-August or something like that. So I'd request probably we throw this onto the agenda in August, maybe the first meeting in August. Just to
do you and I want to work on the responses, or you and Clemens and I?
Okay,
and we can work on the responses so that it's a short agenda item?
Yeah, it's not controversial. I just remember there were one or two issues I wanted to just raise my hand on and stuff like that for clarification. But basically, it's just a report on what they're doing and what they should be doing. So it's pretty good.
I found the important part of it was the where there was the 2006 LAFCO recommendations, and then what the district had done. And I think we would do well to go through our MSR, Municipal Service Report, and see what the recommendations were and see what we've done.
Sure. One quick interesting thing on that is the last one for RCD was 2003. So although these are supposed to be done every 5 years, this was 17 years because it's been so backed up and underfunded and everything else. So it's been 17 years. So I have no idea when the next coast side one's going to come around. It's not this year or next year. That's it.
Director's reports? Hearing none. General Manager's report.
Yeah, I have something, and that is our next meeting is scheduled for August 6th, and I'm not going to be available that week. So I'm looking to see if we can reschedule that meeting. And interestingly enough, there is actually Thursday the 30th this month. That would be an option. Or I think another option is, I don't think there is an option to cancel the first meeting in August. The other option would be to push it back.
If you can have all the checks ready to go on the financials, but I think given what we're discussing in closed session, I think having the opportunity to even have a special meeting to see what's going to be happening with our friends to the south. And so my opinion is just schedule the meeting when you need to. I don't know. Let's take a straw poll of the board.
I'm good either day, before or after the week.
Can I ask Christine, what would be the time-wise, what would be the best? Have it on the 30th or the week after the 6th?
I'm not sure it makes much difference at this point. I think either one.
Yeah, I would vote for the 30th. Give us a heads up.
Should we check after we have our closed session meeting and then pick it?
That makes sense to me. Scott, schedule is the worst, most congested.
You're muted.
Which dates are we looking at?
30th or the 13th. Why don't we
It
vote
looks like-
after the closed session?
Same
I
difference.
think that makes sense.
No real difference to me.
Yeah, and we can
Okay.
also schedule that in the future. Maybe we have some options, and we can communicate, of course, relatively freely
That's
about
fine.
scheduling a meeting.
Yep. Okay, moving right along then to recess from open session and convene in closed session. So folks who don't need to be in closed session, thank you for attending. And folks who need to be in closed session, hang on.
Bye, Greg and Joel.